Good afternoon, folks. Welcome back to Celtic Fans TV. Long time no see. We're back after a short pre-season break, and we're here to talk about Celtic 1, Wolves 1 in Dublin. I've got Darren with me. You can give your thoughts in the game and ask questions in the live chat box below, and we'll try and pick out any good ones as we go through. Darren, we've got a lot to cover, both on and off the pitch, because we've taken this break in the last 3 or 4 weeks, but we'll start with the first half today. That's the most chance I've had to see the team in pre-season, because the games over in Japan were during working hours. So what did you make of the team in that first half?
I really enjoyed the first half, mate. A lot of kind of direct football. The first 5 minutes were kind of a wee bit nervy. Obviously, we looked at the lineup and we thought that the defence was maybe weaker than it should. Obviously, we've got loads of injuries and stuff at the moment. We've still got a defender to come in and stuff. I don't actually know why Stafford wasn't in. Maybe you could tell me about that in a minute. But I actually enjoyed the first half, and I thought that it was good to play a Premier League team like Wolves, who would be a bit, they wouldn't sit back. They would come and make a game of it, and I thought it was good that way because we were very direct going forward in terms of like getting Hatate and McGregor on the ball. They're playing long balls through to Maeda and Abada, who can run for days. And you know, the first half was really good. We obviously take the lead early. Kyogo doing what he does. Brilliant determination. We'll talk about that in a minute. Second half was obviously slightly a wee bit calmer because we made a lot of subs and it was pretty poor overall. But the first half with the first team players, I was actually kind of impressed. And even, you know, the defence as well being kind of weaker. I thought they defended quite well, and the midfield were fantastic. Hatate was really good. Abada going forward. Maeda making a lot of runs. Kyogo, again, I just spoke about him. So, like you said, I'm kind of the same as you. It's the first half kind of had properly. I tried to watch the second game in Japan, but the stream I was watching, I couldn't really see much yet. So first impressions I seen the new team, that first half especially, was pretty good.
I was encouraged. I thought first half were really good. I thought we looked sharp. The pressing in the final third was absolutely brilliant when we didn't have the ball. I thought Wolves were maybe a bit rusty. To be honest, they didn't look like they were in great shape, but from our point of view, I thought we were really good. I thought the front three looked really dangerous. Kyogo does brilliantly for the first goal. Hatate's pressure robs the Wolves defender 1-2 with a bad, great finish. And I thought all three, Maeda, Abada and Kyogo, they got in behind Wolves' defence so many times in that first half. Kyogo hits the bar with a lovely chip, times his run to perfection with McGregor's ball over the top. Abada and Maeda both had brilliant chances to get low crosses in, where Wolves were high up the pitch and we get down the sides in behind. So I thought there was a lot of encouraging signs from an attacking point of view in that first half. Darren, one of the things in pre-season, a couple of early friendlies, was that Maeda played through the middle. We saw him going back out left today, and then he moved through the middle when Kyogo came off for a short period before O came on. But what have you made of Maeda? What do you make of him today, and how do you see his future under Rodgers?
Tough one, mate, because today I thought he just played how he's been playing the last kind of year and a half for Ange. It just kind of looked the exact same player, like running up and down the wing, constantly pressuring the defender, making those runs in behind, trying to get the low cross. So in comparison to, I'm going through the middle for one game, which I didn't see the game, I just seen the highlights, and he bags a hat-trick. So it's strange. I know that's where he played before I was signing him. He was kind of like a false nine, I think. I'm not 100%, but I think he was like a false nine. And he was a good goal scorer. So it's kind of hypothetical just now how Rodgers is going to play him. He might want to try something different, and he might stick to what he's been doing and play him down the left. But the main thing today is that he did pass up a few chances. That one on his left foot where he just kind of scuffed it. It was an open goal. He's getting the head on the second half. That's just kind of, he's never been that goal scorer for Celtic, and that's maybe why he gets played on the left. But maybe it was just a fluke that we put him through the middle and he bags a hat-trick. So it's a good headache for Brendan Rodgers, I'm sure.
I think so. It'll be interesting to see how he develops under him, because I think obviously wingers are such a big part of Rodgers' teams. We saw it the first time he was here, and I think Maeda's probably that middle part of his career where Rodgers can help him and develop him and maybe try and get something extra out of his game. Whether that will be in terms of goals, I don't know. But he gets in so many great positions, and his work rate and intensity is always incredible. So I'm going to watch him closely this season. I think it'll be interesting to see how he develops. I think people were quick to say, well, I don't think he'll fit Rodgers' style, and he might be one that goes. But
I was one of them as well. I didn't think he would either.
Yeah, I don't think that'll be the case. Hugo is saying Abada's been great so far pre-season. I thought he looked sharp as well today. There's been a lot of talk about Abada's future. Even in the last 6 months, going back to January, he's been linked with Ajax, Sporting Lisbon. So many teams seem to be linked to him in recent months. But again, how do you feel about his future? And do you think now that Jota has left, that Abada is really important in terms of keeping him in the squad?
Well, you stole the words right out of my mouth then, mate. It just depends, obviously, going forward. I think the fans definitely want us to break the bank and sign a winger. It's only natural when you lose one of your best players, you want to replace him with a big money signing. But I'm sure from his point of view, he'll be thinking now that Jota's gone, that's a chance for him to kind of step up and be that main winger. And the last 2 seasons, like, again, I like him as a player, but I've been critical of some aspects of his game in terms of, like, maybe, you know, obviously he's stepped up in big games against Rangers, but some games he maybe shies away and he thinks like his final ball and stuff like that. But with playing with Brendan Rodgers, I noticed that the build-up play is so much quicker. There's a lot less passing involved. If you know what I mean, when we were playing with Ange, it was like the midfield and the defence had to pass each other like 10 times. Whereas now it's back to front quick, and that lets Abada make those runs in behind the defence. So he's getting one-on-one with a fullback, he's running past them, and that ball's getting sucked in, he's getting chances to cross for Maeda. And I think he assisted like 3 goals in one game in Japan, the 6-4 game. You know, he would never have done that under Ange. So again, it's hypothetical again, because I've really liked him pre-season, and no, I'm not saying 50-50, that's maybe a bit harsh, but I've been sceptical of him sometimes. Like, you know, he is that young player, he's got good aspects to his game, but it can be a bit raw sometimes. I think he needs a bit of coaching, but who better than Brendan Rodgers to give him some good coaching?
Aye, definitely. I think something interesting today, difference in terms of the patterns and the build-up. I don't think the fullbacks come inside as often, obviously, under Rodgers as they did under Ange. And I think while we're talking about Abada, he was making that movement from in to out, and then Hatate was going into that sort of right hand side space and driving forward. Hatate also hit the bar in the first half as well, coming in off the left hand side, up with an overlapping run as well. So I think the patterns that the eights, O'Reilly and Hatate, make in tandem with the wingers is going to be interesting to see how it unfolds as well once the season starts. Darren, you touched on something at the start there in terms of Carl Starfelt, who was missing today. Now, I just thought he must have picked up an injury. There's lots of comments about it. Lots of people wondering where he is. The commentators at the start of that game seemed to suggest like he was on his way out the door. So I don't know if they know something that we don't know, but it seemed like they seemed convinced there was some sort of speculation that he might leave. I know Spartak Moscow were linked to him in the last couple of weeks, but they've signed Davison Sanchez from Tottenham in the last few days. So I don't know if there's anything in that. Maybe it is just a knock, but does that defence give you a bit of concern? Because obviously we've got injuries throughout the team. Alistair Johnston's out, Anthony Ralston's out. We've seen Iwata at right back today. And then I think it was young McPherson that came on and played at right back in the second half. We've got Scales and Stephen Welsh at centre half. No Carter Vickers training, but not back fit yet. And obviously Nawrocki, who's just signed, not involved today. So getting into the start of the league campaign, that would concern you, because it's only really Greg Taylor in that back four that you expect to be a starter.
Well, we need to hope that the main ones, Carter Vickers and Johnston, we need to hope they are back sharpish. I heard on the radio during the week that CCV's back in training. I don't know if that's true or not.
I've seen a picture of him.
Aye, like, that's good news, obviously. But today, in terms of like Scales and Welsh, you know, you would never go into a competitive game with a two centre back. You know, you're just asking for trouble. There was a moment in the first half where one of the Wolves wingers just completely skipped by Welsh, nutmegged him, and you're thinking, like, what the hell are you doing? Do you know what I mean? And there's even talk about Welsh probably leaving the club because he's just not getting any game time. I think it might be a good option for him, because where was Kobayashi today as well? Never even thought about
that. He wasn't involved either. I don't know if he's got an injury.
Just mounting up, isn't he?
Mm-hmm.
It's obviously today's just, you take a friendly out of the equation because it is a friendly, but back in Saturday against Ross County. I don't really know who we're going to play. Obviously, Starfelt, depending on if he's injured or not, he should obviously play. Narowski, he should, if he has to play instead of Carter Vickers, then, you know, if you want to spend $4 million on the defender, you need to put him in the starting lineup, you know. And then again, Ralston and Johnson, you need a right back. You can't play a Wata there, because we've seen at the end of last season he's probably not a competent right back either.
I think in terms of Nawrocki, who's just arrived, I don't know where he's at with his preparation. I don't know. Obviously, he's just signed, so whether he's done a full pre-season or where his fitness is at, I don't know. But you're right. I don't think you want to start that game next week with Welsh and Scales in there. Starfelt hopefully back. I don't think Carter Vickers is obviously going to make next week, but he's on the way. But that would be a concern. I think in terms of back to the game, I think we should probably have had more goals in that first half. Wolves did threaten, particularly towards the end of the first half, but I mean, it's pre-season. You can never really take too much away for results in pre-season. But in the second half, we're past that stage of pre-season where you make all the changes at half-time. The starting 11 kind of stayed the same until 65 minutes. And then we've seen our after changes, and the game just lost all rhythm after that, didn't it?
It did. I think the young McPherson came on, the two Korean guys came on, Hakspanovic, just to name a few, but it did, and that's why I was watching the game with my dad there, and I says, look, I'm not going to judge any of these, the two Korean signings by this game today, because they're coming on to a game that has completely lost all rhythm. They're making their debut, so I'm not going to make any assessments of their performance just yet, because I don't really think it's fair. So, yeah.
Would you make the penalty? It's a dive, wasn't it?
Of course it is. But again, Joe Hart, he should know better than to even throw himself into that situation. He's given him an option. Are we going to talk about Joe Hart again? Because I was having a look on Twitter during the game. And, you know, game by game, we're starting to lose confidence in him, ain't we?
Aye, there's a lot of comments even in the live chat here for people talking about the goalkeeping situation. I think it's a hard one. I said back in January, I think it's something the club should look at in terms of who's going to be next. The rumours, and they're only rumours because who really knows what's happening, but Livakovic, the Croatian goalkeeper, don't seem to be going away. It looks like his move to Fenerbahce's fell through. Don't know what's happening there. Whether we're genuinely interested or not, and whether we could pull a move like that off. But I think goalkeeper is an area that we should be looking at. Hugo's saying new goalkeeper, new centre-half. I think because we've just brought in Nawrocki from Legia Warsaw, it's obviously goalkeeper. But Darren, what do you make of the business so far? I think so far this pre-season, everything seemed quite low-key. There's been like a quiet vibe to everything. I don't know if that's just me, my interpretation of it. And I don't just mean the transfer news. I just think everything about pre-season has been a bit strange. Obviously, the Korea thing fell by the wayside, and then after Jota left, there was like 2 or 3 weeks where not a lot happened, apart from a couple of new contracts. What have you made of the business so far? Because I know that's a big topic for everybody.
Well, you can tell Ange's not here anymore, can't you? He would usually have 3 or 4 signings in the door by now, and I know we do, but I think the players that we've signed all seem to be projects. Thiago Holm, the 2 Koreans, etc. They all seem like, you know, long-term signings that we kind of want to just develop. So I think myself and the fan base are looking for that marquee signing, that big name, that big money move. And, you know, I think we're all getting kind of anxious now, because the longer it goes on, the more we're wondering, are we going to break the bank for a player? And I think if we're going into the Champions League, even just to give that peace of mind amongst the fans that we're taking this competition seriously, we need to pay, not saying we need to pay, you know, like a Celtic record fee. I think it's 9 million for Edward. I'm not saying we need to spend 9 million for a player, but definitely a few million on a winger. And for me, definitely a goalkeeper. But the business we've done so far, I mean, we can't make any complaints because, you know, our ball's not even kicked yet. We've definitely brought in some more players. It's not as if just nothing's getting announced. So again, it's just kind of playing the waiting game. I know at the end of July we'll still get to the end of August, but ideally you would want to bring in a big money signing before the season starts and get them kind of up to fitness and get them playing with the squad. But maybe they'll just take their time trying to pick the right player. I suppose you don't want to rush into spending money like we have in the past with Barkas and Ayeti and all that. So suppose it could work out if we just take our time, look for the right player, and then spend the money.
Mm-hmm. I mean, looking at that lineup today, and I know we've talked about the defence, but that's PTSD for Rodgers' first spell in it. Like, this stage of the season, going into Champions League qualifiers, with a back four that is so far for first choice, it's untrue. And here we are a week before the season, and I know it's brought on by injuries, but we find ourselves with a thrown together defence again. I think the challenge is, because Rodgers is back, we all thought he must have been promised big money.
Amount of money.
And that meant there was going to be marquee signings. It meant that everybody seemed to have made up in their mind that we were going to get these marquee signings, maybe break the record. I don't think necessarily that's what the club want to do. They don't just want to go and spend big money for the sake of it. And the thing that's worked for us under Ange, and it's to be seen if we can sustain that without him, is that we've got brilliant value from markets like Asia.
Buy low, sell high kind of thing.
Yeah. Obviously, like Hatate and Maeda. Kyogo was a relatively big fee in Celtic terms, but we've got great value for players, and we haven't went and spent 8-10 million on them. So I think there might be a bit of a misalignment between what the fans think we were going to do with Rodgers back and what we'll actually do. But I do think we need to do more if we want to. I say if we want to make an impact in the Champions League, there might be an amount of signings that is impossible for us to make an impact in the Champions League. It's such a difficult thing to measure. We could make 2 quality signings and still finish bottom of a group. But I do think there's areas we can improve. And obviously coming into August, I think people are just getting a wee bit anxious about it. But listen, we did see 2 debuts today for the South Korean boys. You said you didn't want to judge them, but just first impressions of the kind of players they are. I think Kwon in midfield looks like a bit of a unit. Loves a tackle. I think he nearly injured the Wolves player. He'd only been on 5 minutes, didn't he?
Well, but on that, the Wolves players, they kind of done that first. They were quite physical as well. So I think he was just giving back what he was getting, to be fair. You mentioned the one there that looked quite physical. I thought the other one, Kwang, is that
Yang.
his name?
Yeah.
Yang, sorry. I thought he looked the opposite of physical because he got bodied quite a lot, didn't he? But again, other than that, the game had literally no rhythm to it. The pace was like a snail's pace. So I can't really assess anything on what they've done. They made a few passes. They didn't give any balls. We didn't make any mistakes. That's the main thing you don't want to do in your debut. So what do you think of the performance?
Hi, I thought Kwon is obviously, I mean, he stands out like a sore thumb in midfield because of his height and his stature. That's something we don't have a lot of in the team. I know that Rodgers wants to add power to the team, probably a bit of height as well, in terms of just improving for set pieces, both offensively and defensively. But I mean, you can't judge him on anything that really happened today. The game lacked so much with him, and it was only really 20-25 minutes. But I think you can tell Yang is a tricky winger, but it's just about getting that balance right.
Minutes in the legs.
Getting up to speed and then making the right decision. I think he'd only been on the pitch 30 seconds and he had a brilliant opportunity to slide in Maeda, and he took a shot instead, which you expect of somebody making his debut. It's just get the ball trying to impress. But early days for Odin, Thiago home as well. I've not seen a lot of him at all. Again, he's one that got 15-20 minutes today. But would you make a him in midfield? And what do you think his place in midfield is? Because it looks set that 3 is going to be McGregor, Hatate and O'Reilly. Some people commenting that McGregor might move up one, which seems to be the debate that happens every season, but he never does it, and I think it's less likely at this stage of his career as well.
Well, like you says, it's going to be, going into this season, it will be McGregor, O'Reilly and Hatate that start vast majority of games, so Holmes' game time will be very limited, probably talking about last 20-30 minutes. If we're comfortable in a game, that he's going to likely to come on. And I don't know if he's more a central attacking kind of midfielder. Is that what he's not like a box-to-box type player, is he? He's just kind of like attacking kind of side.
I think he's maybe an 8. I think he's maybe an 8.
Is he sort of a kind of box-to-box midfielder?
Aye.
Again, just I haven't seen him kick a ball yet, mate. So we'll kind of reserve judgment for when the actual football starts.
Aye, it's hard to judge. Hard to judge a lot of these guys having having played so little minutes. Keane's saying Home is going to play the Moy role. Possibly. We did, obviously, when Aaron Moy was here last season, we've seen a lot of rotation in that position. How's the form of Matt O'Reilly going to be this season? Can he get back to where it was that first 6 to 12 months his Celtic career and really nail down that position? But I think it's good to have options, and we'll see how that develops. Obviously, Darren, we've only got one friendly left against Athletic Bilbao on Tuesday. It's James Forrest's testimonial, but it will be the last chance for Brendan Rodgers to get minutes and legs and test anything before we get back to league action next week. What do you make of where we're at overall? Do you think we're ready to go next week, and what do we need to do more?
I think we're pretty much ready to start domestically anyway. Europe's a different question, to be honest, but domestically going into that game against Ross County, I think we're pretty set, especially up top with the wingers and the strikers and midfielders. We seem pretty comfortable. The main question is, as we spoke about a few minutes ago, defence. Will some of that defence be back for the Ross County game? Because, like we say, you can't go into that game with Welsh and Scales starting that game. So, as a squad, I think we're in a pretty good place. I don't think we're the finished article yet. As we spoke about, there's still a month left of the transfer window. I would expect one or two more first team signings to come into that team. I still don't think there's a lot of surgery needing done at the team because we're off the back of a treble. It's a very successful team. Realistically, we've only lost two players, Jota to Saudi Arabia and Aaron Moy retiring. Other than that, it's pretty much the exact same squad. So we know that side is going to do well domestically, but if we want to progress in Europe, I'll say it again, we need to spend a lot of money on a few players.
I think there will be more signings coming in. What do you think about up top? Well, obviously Kyogo, the main man, looked sharp today. He did maybe pull up a wee bit. I don't know if it was just cramp in the second half. We've got O there as well, and we've obviously saw Maeda play through the middle in pre-season. Do you think Brendan Rodgers will be happy with that, content with that, or do you think that might be an area he's looking to strengthen in, and do you think we should strengthen there?
I think Brendan Rodgers is going to have to be content with it, because if we're going to sign three strikers, it's going to upset the balance. There's no way that you can keep three strikers who expect to be playing happy. It's the same way when Giacomakis, he wasn't happy, left. So, and as well, if Kyogo and or maybe injured or suspended, then you have that fallback of Maeda coming in there. I know it's not ideal, but it's literally the best option you can have rather than signing three strikers and then upsetting the balance.
Aye, definitely. And in terms of, we don't like to talk about losing players, but thankfully, touchwood, it seems to have gone quiet in that front since Jota left. Do you think, even in terms of clearing out some of the deadwood, do you think there'll be a lot of exits still to
happen? Hard to tell. I think, as I says, Stephen Welsh might leave because we're quite top heavy at the back. I know Hatate, he probably gets linked to a different Premier League team every single week because of how well he's playing, and I wouldn't be surprised between now and then maybe an article comes out that this mid-table team is preparing a bid and whatever, but other than that, I can't really see anybody moving on. Again, I've not got a crystal ball kind of looking into the future, but everyone seems settled. Everyone's kind of wanting to have another crack in Europe, so we'll just need to wait.
I think Hatate's the only one in it because obviously we've nailed Kyogo down. We've lost Jota. I think Carter Vickers and Hatate.
I think because Carter Vickers are injured just now, just after surgery, I think teams will kind of be a bit cautious of that.
Aye, that might be a bit of a blessing for us, but Hatate's the only one because we've not extended his contract. That I think maybe something could still happen with, but he's integral. I think we need to keep him at all costs because we're strong in midfield with those three, but I think to lose two of the likes of Jota and someone like Hatate in the same summer would be a huge void to try and fill. Right, Darren, that's it. Anything else you want to cover that we've maybe missed when we've been away? Like, for example, the new kits, which have which have split opinion, I think it's fair to say.
Do you know, right? See, when I first seen that home kit, I was like, oh, that's rotten. But see, everything. See, once I seen the players playing, I was like, you know what? It's not bad.
Growing on you, is it?
Aye, it is. It's grown on me. So I think I will maybe nip down and get it at some point. I've not bought it yet, but I probably will buy it.
Aye, it's different. It's no my favourite. Let's put it that way. But
I think it's an Adidas thing, because I think if you look at Manchester United have Adidas as well, and their home kit, the black stripes and stuff, is very similar to design ours. So I think it's just an Adidas thing.
Aye. Right, that is it for full-time reaction to Celtic 1, Wolves 1 in Dublin. Thank you for joining us. That is us back now. We've got videos planned through the week leading up to that league opener against Ross County. Next Saturday, we'll be back for James Forrest's testimonial on Tuesday as well. So join us for that, like this video, and please don't forget to subscribe if you haven't already. Click the red subscribe button below and you can keep up with all the content as we move into the new season. Thank you.